По-русски недостаточно хорошо. Я могу читать по-русски, но лучше, если переводчик будет. Okay. Devotees. Haribol. So here we go, devotees. Whoever would like to stay, please stay. Anyone who, for any reason, would like to move along, that's fine. No problem at all. But it's very interesting, Prabhupada-lilamrita. So interesting. Gosh, it's just amazing. Completely amazing. Okay, devotees, we're in the 3rd volume. And we are, what is it? I think the 5th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check. Oops. What is it? It's the 5th chapter of the 3rd volume. Prabhupada-lilamrita. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadishtarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripas sindhubhya evacha, Paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Just a sec. Yeah, so, okay. We're in the 3rd volume. We're right, or close to the end of the 3rd volume, actually. 3 more volumes to go. And Srila Prabhupada is in the process of leaving. He's left San Francisco and flown to New York. And he's, I think, met the devotees in the airport. Yeah, or maybe he came out and spent a couple of hours, but it was something like that, and he's about to fly off to Delhi for the first time since coming to the West. All right, so here we go. Achyutananda told Prabhupada he wanted to go to India to study intensively, gather experiences, and become attached to Krishna. He had heard Prabhupada say that one could become more Krishna conscious in 2 days in Vrindavan than in 10 years in America. Hare Krishna. I never heard that before. That's pretty interesting. Do you think I'll be able to go? Achyutananda asked. Rest assured, Prabhupada told him, we will meet again in Vraja. Devotees had been asking Satsvarup to transfer his civil service job to Boston and open a Krishna conscious center there. They had also asked Rupanuga to do the same in Buffalo. Satsvarup and Rupanuga approached Prabhupada to find out what he wanted. He became very pleased. Subal was going to open a center in Santa Fe, he said, and Dayananda was going to Los Angeles. Hare Krishna mantra is like a big cannon, he told them. Go and sound this cannon so everyone can hear it, and it will drive away Maya. The devotees wanted to ask, but what if you don't return? They were fearful. What if Krishna kept Swamiji in Vrindavan? What if Swamiji never returned? How could they survive against Maya? But Swamiji had already assured them that whatever Krishna consciousness he had given them would be enough, even if he never returned. Just 30 minutes before he had to leave for the airport, Prabhupada sat in his room chanting on the beads of a girl who had asked to be initiated. Then, as he had done many times before, he left his apartment, went downstairs, crossed the courtyard, and entered the storefront. Sitting on the old carpet, he spoke quietly and personally. I may be going, but Guru Maharaj and Bhaktivinoda are here. He looked toward the paintings of his spiritual master and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I've asked them to kindly take care of all of you, my spiritual children. The grandfather always takes care of the children much better than the father. So do not fear. There is no question of separation. The sound vibration fixes us up together, even though the material body may not be there. What do we care for this material body? Just go on chanting Hare Krishna, and we will be packed up together. You will be chanting here, and I will be chanting there. And this vibration will circulate around this planet. Several devotees rode with Prabhupada in the taxi. Brahmananda in the front with the driver, Roy Ram and Kirtanananda in the back beside their spiritual master. When Kirtanananda sees Vrindavan, Prabhupada said, he will not be able to understand how I could have left that place and come to this place. It is so nice. There are no motor cars there like here, rushing, whoosh, whoosh, and smelling. Only there is Hare Krishna. Everybody always chanting. Thousands and thousands of temples. I will show you, Kirtanananda. We will walk all about there, and I will show you. Brahmananda began to cry, and Prabhupada patted him on the back. I can understand that you're feeling separation, he said. I'm feeling for my Guru Maharaj. I think this is what Krishna desires. You may be coming there to me and be training up, and we will spread this movement all over the world. Roy Ram, you will go to England. Brahmananda, you want to go to Japan or Russia? Yeah, Russia in those days, gosh. It was super heavy communism. That's all right. The devotees converged on the Air India waiting room near a crowded cocktail lounge. Wearing a sweater, his chadar folded neatly over one shoulder, Prabhupada sat in a chair. His disciples sat as closely as possible around his feet. He held an umbrella, just as when he had first come alone to New York, almost 2 years ago. Although exhausted, he was smiling. Hare Krishna, devotees. Welcome. He'll get more cushions, but there's place on the throne, Marie's throne. No, it's all right, just stay there, don't move. But cushions are coming too, so just whatever works. Okay, where were we? Prabhupada noted a mural of Indian women carrying large jars on their heads. And he called the name of a young girl who had recently gone with her husband, Hansadutta, to join the ISKCON Center in Montreal. Himavati, would you like to go to India and learn to carry this water pot like the Indian women? Yes, yes, she said, I'll go. Yes, Srila Prabhupada said, someday we will all go. Have any of you carried water pots on your heads, ladies? Mother Radharanath? Shadharani? No? Pushpa? No? You've been to India though, right? Oh, you haven't? Okay. Anyway, yeah, let me tell you one, because these ladies, I tell you what, some of them are pretty amazing when it comes to carrying water pots on their heads. I told the story, you probably heard. It was really quite an experience. I was in a village called Didavali. It's where Mother Yashoda's mother was born. It's near, Deeg, on the way to Badrinath in Vraj. And there was a water pump in the center of the small village, and the ladies would queue up with a few pots for water for their homes, because that was the source of water for the village. And so these two ladies got their water. They each one had 3 pots on their heads, each one. And somehow, I don't know what happened, but somehow they got upset with each other and they started screaming. Oh boy, really screaming at each other. As we say in Chatsworth, one way. Yeah. And then one of them took a big slap at the other one. And the other one stepped back so it missed. And then the other one took a big slap at the first one, who took a big slap back. And they're screaming and slapping with 3 water pots on each of their heads. No kidding. And I'll tell you what, none of the water pots fell off. That's advanced Brijbasi culture. Really, it's amazing, yeah. Okay, right. Kirtanananda was carrying a portable battery-operated phonograph, means record player, and 2 copies of the Hare Krishna mantra record. Kirtanananda, Prabhupada asked, why not play the record? They will enjoy. Kirtanananda played the record very softly, its sound catching the attention of people in the cocktail lounge. They're in the cocktail lounge. Oh, Krishna. Make it a little louder, Prabhupada asked. and Kirtanananda increased the volume. Prabhupada began nodding his head, keeping time. Soon the devotees began humming along with the record, and then quietly singing, until gradually they were singing loudly. Kirtanananda, Brahmananda, and other devotees began to cry. Hansadutta, I was sitting right next to Swamiji, and all the time I was thinking, oh, my spiritual master is going to India. And he said, I want to die in Vrindavan. We all knew Swamiji was going, but now it was the last moment. I was also seeing that I hadn't done anything for my spiritual master. He doesn't even know who I am, I thought. There's no relationship. I must do something. I must do something now. I must serve him in some way which will establish some place in his heart, something. I was thinking, what can I do? I was crying, and he didn't even look at me. It was like I wasn't even there, just like a chair or something. He was just always looking around and everything, and I was trying to catch his eye. If all of a sudden he would say something. The kirtan, this is still Hansadutta, the kirtan was getting heavier and heavier, and so was the crying. And the people in the waiting room were just looking at Swamiji like he was someone very special. And in the middle of it all, Swamiji was completely relaxed, as if this were his place, and this was just a normal thing to do. When the record ended, Hansadutta asked, Hansadutta, I knew him well, very well really. He just passed away. I think either this year or possibly 2020. So when the record ended, Hansadutta asked, Swamiji, can I take a collection? Prabhupada nodded. Hansadutta stood and made a little speech. Our mission is to spread Krishna consciousness. We have a temple in New York. We're always badly in need of money. Please help us. Borrowing a hat from a soldier, Hansadutta went around taking a collection. Our traveling is very auspiciously beginning, Prabhupada said. We had a nice kirtan and we had a nice collection. It is all Krishna's mercy. Then it was time to board the plane. Prabhupada embraced each of his men. They stood in a line, and one after another approached him and embraced him. He patted a few of the women on the head. Rupanuga, Swamiji was embracing the men. Kirtanananda, Brahmananda, Gagamuni. I never expected that he would ask me to step forward. I didn't consider myself in the same category with the other devotees. So I was very much surprised when Swamiji motioned to me and spoke my name, Rupanuga. I got up and walked to Swamiji. It might have been 10 feet, but it seemed like a long distance. I embraced him, and that embrace was the most memorable embrace of my life. Right away I noticed Srila Prabhupada's strength. He was so strong it was like embracing a young man, a man my age. I was 27, and he seemed even stronger and younger than I. And he hugged me tightly, and I also embraced him very firmly. He was smaller than me in stature, so I instinctively buried my chin in the hollow of his left shoulder. While I was embracing him, I felt very blissful, and I felt a light. I felt there was a light, something bright and pure, and some kind of energy emanating from my face. I opened my eyes and I saw Kirtanananda watching. He was standing behind Swamiji, a few feet away, and I looked right into his eyes. And I was so happy and blissful that it reflected in him somehow. He broke into a big smile, smiled at me, and his eyes were very bright. It was as if some spiritual energy was actually emanating from me. That airport scene was a very important part of my life, because for me, a person who always had difficulty in loving another person, Swamiji's leaving forced out a lot of love from my heart I didn't even know was there. It's like becoming a spiritual person when you feel love really developing for the spiritual master. I was becoming a spiritual person. It was a tremendous outpouring of feelings of separation and grief at his departure, because we all knew he was our life and soul. And to a person, none of us were sure we would ever see him again, unquote. Accompanied by Kirtanananda, whose head was shaven and who wore an incongruous black woolen suit, Prabhupada walked slowly toward the gate. As he disappeared from view, the devotees ran for the observation deck to get a last look at his departing plane. A gentle rain was washing the airfield as the devotees raced across the wet observation deck. There below were Prabhupada and Kirtanananda walking towards their plane, because Kirtanananda, it's hardly been discussed at all, but he's going with Prabhupada. Abandoning decorum, the devotees began to shout. Prabhupada turned and waved. He climbed the movable stairway, turning again at the top and raising his arms, and then entered the plane. The devotees chanted wildly while the boarding steps moved away, the door closed, and the plane began to turn. The devotees had pressed close to the rail, but they pulled back as the jet exhaust blasted them with heat. With a great roar, the Air India jet, lights blinking, taxied out to the runway. The devotees continued to chant Hare Krishna until the plane left the ground, becoming a speck in the sky, and then disappeared. So, devotees, Chapter 6, India Revisited, Part 1. The plane flew during the night and arrived in London by morning. Srila Prabhupada had planned a stopover. He checked into an airport hotel, took his massage and rested. In the afternoon he rose and bathed, and then he and Kirtanananda boarded their plane, bound for New Delhi via Moscow. While the plane was still on the ground, however, a crew member announced a short delay due to health regulations. A passenger who had disembarked earlier that day was now sick, apparently with smallpox, so the plane would have to be thoroughly fumigated. Prabhupada and Kirtanananda stayed in a room at the Excelsior Hotel for the night. Early the next morning, July the 24th, 1967, Yeah. Seated in his hotel room, complete with air conditioning and television, neither of which he had used, Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter to Brahmananda in New York. Quote, "Accept my blessings. I'm always thinking of your separation feelings. Please do your duty nicely, and Krishna will help you in all respects. We are delayed here for 16 hours, starting this morning at 9 for Delhi. The attention of Mr. B.K. Nehru, the ambassador of India, was drawn to me the other day. I've told him about my permanent visa, and he has promised to help me when I come back. Please make an appointment with him, informing that I wish to present him our set of Bhagavatam and our other literatures. Then go to him and personally present the books, etc., at Washington, D.C. It may be that as soon as I feel some strength, I shall be coming back. Up to now, there was no disturbance about my health, and I hope to reach Delhi this night. I shall write you again after reaching Vrindavan. Convey my ardent affection and blessings for all the boys and girls. I'm very much hopeful of my movement. Please keep steady. Follow all my instructions scrupulously. Chant Hare Krishna, and Krishna will give you all strength." Yeah, Prabhupada would call his disciples boys and girls. You know, the majority were in their 20s. A few, really a few, like Jayananda was 30 or 31, something like that. But the vast majority were in their 20s, and occasionally you'd get some who are like 18 or 19. And Prabhupada called all of them boys and girls. And I remember when I first heard Prabhupada say that, boys and girls, and I thought, me, a boy? I'm a man. I was 21. Yeah. Prabhupada and Kirtanananda flew to Moscow. There they walked around the terminal, observing what Prabhupada called propaganda pictures. After a 1-hour stopover, they reboarded and flew another 8 hours, arriving in Delhi around midnight. Okay, I'll read a little more. The wall of heat that greeted them felt good to Prabhupada. He had come for this. Inside the airport terminal, overhead fans stirred the muggy air as Prabhupada and Kirtanananda stood in slow-moving lines while uniformed clerks checked passports and customs forms without Western-style computers or efficiency. Just beyond the areas for immigration and customs, people waiting for arriving passengers were waving, calling, and coming together with friends and family members. After Prabhupada and Kirtanananda claimed their luggage and cleared customs, they stood on the sidewalk outside the terminal. Although Prabhupada had removed his sweater, Kirtanananda stood sweltering in his black wool suit. Krishna. It was 2 a.m. All around, passengers were meeting loved ones who embraced them, sometimes even garlanded them, and helped them into cars or taxis. But no one was there for Prabhupada. It was certainly different from the recent tearful airport scenes where Prabhupada had been with his loved ones. Now, instead of being surrounded by loving disciples, Prabhupada was besieged by taxi drivers and porters wanting to carry his luggage for a fee. In Hindi, Prabhupada asked one of the drivers to take them to Chippiwada in Old Delhi. The driver put their luggage in the trunk, and Prabhupada and his disciple climbed into the back seat. The small ambassador taxi drove through streets well known to Srila Prabhupada. Nighttime traffic was light, an occasional taxi or motor rickshaw. Mostly the streets were empty and quiet, the shops closed, an occasional person or cow sleeping outdoors. Just a few years before, Prabhupada had sold Back to Godhead magazines, solicited donations, and printed his Srimad Bhagavatams here. In those days he had been alone, practically without money or residence, yet he had been happy, completely dependent on Krishna. But India's leaders were rejecting Vedic culture and imitating the West. Although some Indians still professed to follow Vedic culture, mostly they were victims of hodgepodge teachers who didn't accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he had felt obliged to leave, to go and transplant the Vedic culture in the West. He had held strictly to the vision of his predecessor spiritual masters, and he had been proven right. The West was a very good field for Krishna consciousness. As the taxi drove through Old Delhi and approached Chowri Bazaar, Prabhupada saw the printing and paper shops now closed for the night, and the usual dense traffic of human-hauled carts was now absent, though some laborers were sleeping on their carts till the morning, when they would bathe in an outdoor well and begin another day's hauling. When Srila Prabhupada had been overseeing the publishing of his first volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, he had daily walked these streets, buying paper, picking up proofs from the printer, returning with the corrected proofs. His first canto had been a triumph. Chowri Bazaar led to side streets that led to the narrow lanes of Chippiwada, where upright metal posts blocked autos and rickshaws from entering. The driver stopped the taxi on an empty road and turned for his payment. Prabhupada took from his wallet 40 rupees, the same 40 rupees he'd carried with him on the boat to America in 1965. But the driver took the entire 40 rupees and said he would keep it all as the just fare. Prabhupada protested. The fare should not even be half that. Loudly they argued back and forth in Hindi. The driver had pocketed the money and would give no change. Prabhupada knew that to get a policeman at this hour would be very difficult. Finally, although this had been nothing less than a robbery, Prabhupada let the man go. He cheated me, Prabhupada said. He and Kirtanananda took their luggage and walked the last block up to the door of the Chippiwada Radha Krishna temple. Hare Krishna. What happened when they got to the Radha Krishna temple? Tune in tomorrow night and find out. It's interesting. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.